Ahimsa. The different ways in which it was interpreted and followed. Ahimsa, or non-killing, forms a very important part of the Buddha's teachings. It is intimately connected with Karuna and Maitri. The question has, however, been raised whether his Ahimsa was absolute in its obligation, or only relative. Was it only a principle, or was it a rule? People who accept the Buddha's teachings find it difficult to accept Ahimsa as an absolute obligation. They say that such a definition of Ahimsa involves the sacrifice of good for evil, the sacrifice of virtue for vice. This question requires to be clarified. There is no subject which is a matter of greater confusion than this subject of Ahimsa. How have the people of Buddhist countries understood and practiced Ahimsa? This is an important question which must be taken into account. The monks of Ceylon fought against, and asked the people of Ceylon to fight against, the foreign invaders. On the other hand, the monks of Burma refused to fight against the foreign invaders, and asked the Burmese people not to fight. The Burmese people eat eggs but not fish. This is how Ahimsa is understood and followed. Recently, the German Buddhist Association passed a resolution by which they accepted all the Panch Silas except the first, which deals with Ahimsa. This is the position about the doctrine of Ahimsa. The true meaning of Ahimsa. What does Ahimsa mean? The Buddha has nowhere given any definition of Ahimsa. In fact, he has very seldom, if at all, referred to the subject in specific terms. One has, therefore, to spell out his intention from circumstantial evidence. The first circumstantial evidence on the point is that the Buddha had no objection to eating meat, if it was offered to him as part of his alms. The monk can eat meat offered to him, provided he was not a party to the killing of it. He resisted the opposition of Devadatta, who insisted that the monks should be prohibited from eating meat given to them by way of alms. The next piece of evidence on the point is that he was only opposed to the killing of animals in yajna sacrifice. This he has himself said. Ahimsa Permo-dharma is an extreme doctrine. It is a Jain doctrine. It is not a Buddhist doctrine. There is another piece of evidence which is more direct than circumstantial, which almost amounts to a definition of Ahimsa. He has said, "Love all, so that you may not wish to kill any." This is a positive way of stating the principle of Ahimsa. From this it appears that the doctrine of Ahimsa does not say kill. Note. It says, love all. In the light of these statements, it is quite easy to have a clear understanding of what the Buddha meant by Ahimsa. It is quite clear that Buddha meant to make a distinction between will to kill and need to kill. He did not ban killing where there was need to kill. What he banned was killing where there was nothing but the will to kill. So understood, there is no confusion in the Buddhist doctrine of Ahimsa. It is a perfectly sound or moral doctrine which everyone must respect. No doubt he leaves it to every individual to decide whether the need to kill is there. But with whom else could it be left? Man has prajna, and he must use it. A moral man may be trusted to draw the line at the right point. Brahmanism has in it the will to kill. Jainism has in it the will never to kill. The Buddha's Ahimsa is quite in keeping with his middle path. To put it differently, the Buddha made a distinction between principle and rule. He did not make Ahimsa a matter of rule. He enunciated it as a matter of principle or way of life. In this he no doubt acted very wisely. A principle leaves you freedom to act. A rule does not. Rule either breaks you, or you break the rule. Transmigration. The Blessed Lord preached that there was rebirth. But the Blessed Lord also preached that there was no transmigration. There were not wanting people who criticized the Lord for preaching what they regarded as two such contradictory doctrines. How can there be rebirth unless there is transmigration? Asked the critics. There is here a case of rebirth without transmigration, they said. Can this be? There is no contradiction. There can be rebirth, although there is no transmigration. This has been well explained by Nagasena in his replies to the questions of King Milinda. Milinda, king of Bactria, asked Nagasena, did the Buddha believe in rebirth transmigration? His reply was yes. Is this not a contradiction? Nagasena replied. No. Can there be rebirth without a soul? Nagasena said, of course, yes, there can be. Explain how it can be. The king said, where there is no transmigration, Nagasena. Can there be rebirth? Yes, there can. But how can that be? Give me an illustration. Suppose a man, O king, were to light a lamp from another lamp. Can it be said that the one transmigrates from, or to, the other? Certainly not. Just so, great king. Is rebirth without transmigration? Give me a further illustration. Do you recollect, great king, having learnt, when you were a boy, some verse or other from your teacher? Yes. I recollect that. Well then, did that verse transmigrate from your teacher? Certainly not. Just so, great king, is rebirth without transmigration? Very good, Nagasena. The king said. Is there such a thing, Nagasena, as the soul? In the highest sense, O king, there is no such thing. Very good, Nagasena. Causes of this misunderstanding. What the Buddha preached was heard by his audience, which largely consisted of the bhikkhus. It is the bhikkhus who reported to the people at large what the Buddha had said on any particular matter. The art of writing had not yet developed. The bhikkhus had therefore to memorize what they had heard. Not every bhikkhu cared to memorize what he heard, but there were some that had made it their profession to memorize. They were called Bhanakas. The Buddhist canonical literature is as vast as an ocean. To memorize all this was indeed a great feat. In reporting the Buddha, it has often been found that he has been misreported. Many cases of misreporting had been brought to the knowledge of the Buddha while he was alive. Reference may be made by way of illustration to 5 such cases. One is mentioned in the Elgadupama Sutta, and the other in the Mahakamavibhanga Sutta, a third in the Kanakathala Sutta, a fourth in the Mahatanhasankhya Sutta, and a fifth in the Jivaka Sutta. There were perhaps many more such cases of misreporting. For we find that even the bhikkhus went to the Buddha, asking him to tell them what they should do in such contingencies. The cases of misreporting are common with regard to karma and rebirth. These doctrines have also a place in the Brahmanic religion. Consequently, it was easy for the Bhanakas to incorporate the Brahmanic tenets into the Buddhist religion. One has therefore to be very careful in accepting what is said in the Buddhist canonical literature as being the word of the Buddha. There is, however, one test which is available. If there is anything which could be said with confidence, it is, he was nothing if not rational, if not logical. Anything therefore which is rational and logical, other things being equal, may be taken to be the word of the Buddha. The second thing is that the Buddha never cared to enter into a discussion which was not profitable for man's welfare. Therefore anything attributed to the Buddha which did not relate to man's welfare cannot be accepted to be the word of the Buddha. There is a third test. It is that the Buddha divided all matters into 2 classes, those about which he was certain, and those about which he was not certain. On matters which fell into class I, he has stated his views definitely and conclusively. On matters which fell into class II, he has expressed his views, but they are only tentative views. In discussing the 3 questions about which there is doubt and difference, it is necessary to bear these tests in mind, before deciding what the view of the Buddha was thereon.